Little Simz is back with a brand new album, Lotus.
This is her 6th studio album. It's 13 songs long, just shy of 50 minutes, and we're going to jump in with the first track, Thief.
This was a very calm and interesting introduction to the album, and I think it set us on a pace in terms of that jazz feel that remains for a lot of the project, not for the entire time though. Fantastic picking guitars, fantastic drum work in the background, but at the same time, the topic of the track is actually quite dark.
Yeah, there was a great bass line initially that was joined by that drum beat, and the flow had a proper head bopper to it, you know what I mean? It was a proper, right, let's get things going. I think it was a great introduction, but like you're saying, very dark topic.
The chorus especially felt like it went down a level and was a little bit deeper than the rest of the track, especially in the like la 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 moments. It was as if she switched a vocal delivery specifically for those la la las.
Another thing about this track, I didn't really like the hook initially, the first couple of times I heard it, but by the second to last and the last time that I heard it, I was fully on board with it, and I think it just takes a bit of getting used to.
And we'll move on to the second track in the album, which is Flood, featuring Oban Jaya and Moonchild Sally.
I love the thumping beat across this track, and it makes for an interesting sounding flow over the top because it kind of contrasted. You had the beat going at a different rate to what the flow was going at, and like sonically you kind of sat there going, whoa, what's going on? I liked that.
There was a really nice transition into this, which then hit us with some heavy feeling drums, and throughout the track I thought it did a good job of building anxiety. When I was listening to it, I felt a little bit uneasy for some reason, but at the same time it was very artistic. I'm not sure if this is a song that would work individually though, if that makes sense. It worked as part of the album, but it's not something I'd particularly want to have on my playlist because of that feeling it brought on inside me.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's kind of there's an air to the track, I guess is the best way to put it, but the bars on this are particularly fire, and I also thought that the hook was very ghostly but very catchy at the same time. But we'll move on to the next track, which is Young, which has a great beat and a great bass line off the bat.
This song is completely different to anything else on the entire project for me. The way that she delivers the bars in that kind of posh girl aesthetic, proper London, Britain feeling way is not done again. And it was weird because I thought, oh, is this something she does on a regular basis? Is this like a part of Little Simz's character or something? I really enjoyed it though. It felt proper British and proper unique.
Yeah, it initially gave me like a Rizzle Kicks vibe almost of some of the tracks off their newest album, but then it quickly morphed into more of like a streets track because it was talking about British life and British culture and high streets and all this other stuff, and something about, I think it was a really good callback to that style of music.
I just don't know how it fit into the album, but I suppose it did well for me because having built up a little bit of anxiety from the last track, this just made it a more fun listening experience.
I mean, having the line, I'm a little teapot, short and stout in there, that caught me off guard, but it made me laugh. But let's move on. We'll go on to Only, which had a nice samba beat to start things off. And again, another great flow. She's smashing it so far.
So there was a big piano sample in this. I'm not sure if I could find online that it was actually an official sample, but it was Dilemma by Nelly and Kelly Rowland. You know that, no matter what I do. Oh. So having that in there instantly made it a little bit lighter, but we were back with the more jazz-esque vibes in the way that the instrumental was produced. I thought this was a proper head bopper, proper mover, one that I could just vibe out to at any moment.
Yeah, Lydia Kitto's vocals added a lot to this track as well, along with the beat and everything else going on. Just an all-round great vibe.
I thought it was layered really well. There was a lot going on, but none of it got muffled or drowned out. But we'll go on to the next track in Free.
Somebody absolutely cooked for the instrumentals on this album because, Jesus Christ, everyone so far has been so good and so, I want to say non-standard. It's not the kind of thing that you would expect to hear on this kind of project, but knocked it out of the park yet again.
And the bars and the chorus on every track so far have been good, but I think that the chorus on this was really simple but really catchy, and I like that sometimes. You know, when it's just not overdone, it's just like boom, memorable, and then the outro with the bars at the end when it's free, free was so good, and it was like a callback to the entire track. I felt like I'd been on a path and made it to the end, and that was the coolest section for me.
We had the bongo drums earlier on, and then when we had that free, it kind of felt like she was following the flow of what the bongo drums were doing earlier, but that free ad-lib, I love it when there's an ad-lib thrown in that then the rapper starts to use as, because he said 1, 2, 3, like she started to use it as part of her flow. I love it when they do that. I thought that was great.
And I think this develops as we get later into the album, but as in the kind of introspective themes of it. But there was a verse in Free that was talking about fear and how that impacts life. I thought that songwriting and lyricism from Little Simz was fantastic. I'd say that this was my favourite track so far on the album. But what's up next, Tim?
Next up is Peace. I've come to find some peace of mind. This is a very serene, very lovely sounding track. I enjoyed this one.
Basic guitar riff, clean bars, and I picked up on a line that I thought was really interesting, which was minimalism doesn't mean you spend less. And I just thought that was quite true. You know, in the modern world, everything's really minimalistic and doesn't have much design, etc. But it actually costs more. They made me think that one line in itself. But a really good feature again. We've got Moses Sumney and Miranda May on this. And so far, every feature has added something well to the tracks.
Something about this track in particular was there was some great storytelling and kind of world-building features to it, where it kind of showed off Little Simz' versatility again, because she's done the ones where it's obvious bars and you can hear what she's saying, a little bit of wordplay. This one felt like she was actually trying to craft something, and I respect her for that.
Well, up next is Hollow, and the instrumental was very different on this one. It was almost as if it was from a Disney film or some kind of like fairy tale type thing. I know, if you go re-listen to it, right, I'm sure you'll agree. But then at the same time, there was this spoken word, quite passionate delivery over it, which completely clouded the happy feel of the instrumental.
This made me realize how much I love her spoken word delivery. Like, it's so good, and it almost feels like slam poetry, because like you're saying with the instrumental, this on top of it felt like it was really thought-provoking. You know, she's put a lot of time into how she's going to deliver the words. It wasn't just a case of spitting them. It was, right, how do I want to phrase these?
Yeah, she built up the tension really well in moments without the instrumental changing much at all. Just the way that she was delivering the bars, you were like, oh, all right, yeah, we're back to calm now. Oh, it was taking you on a journey.
There's something about it felt like it kind of gave the vibe of maybe one of Stormzy's more introspective tracks, where it just kind of has that more serene flow and kind of like, I don't know, something about it. I really liked it. And yeah, we'll move on to Lion. Bet you never seen a young black woman looking so fly.
This was back with a bit more energy. A really funky track, and I think we kind of needed this after the last track, which went in a different direction. Again, I thought this one was a little bit more repetitive than some of the other songs on the album, but it still had me moving around. It still had me bobbing my head, so I was happy with it.
The bass on this track is disgusting. I had it going through my speakers, and it had such a crazy low end. I loved it. But also, I was like, hang on a minute. Is that a cheeky bit of saxophone in there that I hear? It was just layered in there nicely. And the beats on this album are so wild. They're so non-standard, like I've said before, but the way that she flows, it pairs with them so flawlessly. It's like she was created for these instrumentals. So I'd like to know how much of a hand she had in creating the beats in the first place, because it'd be interesting to see if she's purposefully done these to make it so that she can fit certain flows over the top of them. But there was, I was down on my luck past tense. Something about that line, I really liked that, because it was kind of saying like, I was down on my luck. Past tense. So she's saying like,
kind of saying it twice.
Yeah, she's like, I am not anymore. And by the way, I'm not anymore. She's saying, I'm not trying to be
anymore.
Yeah, she's like, don't worry about me. That's not what I'm saying. Stop trying to say that I'm who I'm not. And yeah, the ending almost felt a little bit like a Gorillaz track to me. I don't know what it was. Something about it felt very kind of reminiscent of a bit of Damon Albarn energy. I don't think he had anything to do with it, but thought that was interesting.
Well, we'll go on to Enough up next, which is featuring Yukimi. And speaking of unique instrumentals, the xylophone on this at the start just goes crazy. Again, I was not expecting that kind of instrument to just be thrown in. In fact, maybe with this album, I was expecting it, but they executed it very well.
It was like a ghostly glockenspiel. The xylophone is the wooden one.
Oh, just going to throw that out. Same difference, sorry. Man said it's a glockenspiel, actually.
But yeah, watch me be wrong now. Watch me be entirely wrong. But then with the bass and the drums and the kind of ghostly voice, the beat slapped. I think this might be my favourite beat off the entire album.
This injected a bit of energy, much higher tempo. We needed that. We've had a lot of deep introspection, a lot of unique sounding tracks. This was a bit of a head. I keep saying it. Everything's a bloody head bopper. Everything on this album just made me want to move around.
Everything's a bloody head bopper. Don't make me pull the plug. That part in particular made me realize how much I loved her delivery. At this point, I'm enamored by her like flow and the way that she says the words that she says.
Speaking of bloody, up next is Blood, featuring Wretch 3-2 and Cash.
Great storytelling yet again. This felt very reminiscent of a lot of tracks in recent years, but delivered in a way that felt fresh and unique. There was kind of this storytelling back and forth situation going on between, clearly it was like relatives. I imagine it'd be brother and sister. And the way that they kind of crafted this storyline without having any prior knowledge was fantastic.
This was one of my favourite songs on the album, without doubt. Wretch 3-2 is one of the best UK rappers in terms of flow and lyrical ability. And as you say, the way that they crafted a story on this, it was two siblings on the phone speaking about family life, speaking about not seeing each other enough, not being in contact, problems with mum, problems with grandma passing away, etc. Really deep, and it was very special, in my opinion, for a UK duo of rap artists to be able to produce a song like this together. I think that this is one of the best UK rap tracks I've heard in a long time. I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was phenomenal. And the ending line of "I only phoned you because I needed a friend," that's so heartbreaking. That's like, oh my God. So they're having this whole argument the whole time, and he's like, "But the only reason I called you is because I know that you would answer the phone." And the way that they crafted that to end it with that, a fantastic track all round.
It really was. And we're on to the title track up next, Tim, which is Lotus, featuring Michael Kiwanaka and Yusuf Day.
It's a really interesting intro on this one, and also there's some really faint church bells in the background, which, again, with the instrumentals, they're just throwing these little things in, but like they're so buried in the mix, but they just add this little bit of atmosphere to the track.
Church bells always make me feel uneasy because I used to live next to a church for years. So for some reason, genuinely, when these started going off, I was like, wait, am I back at my old house? Like, this is not right. But there was an angrier, more serious delivery on this track, and I think that introspection that we've seen a few times throughout the album is really epitomised in this. Little Simz is talking about fame, the world, finding a way in music, how the industry is, and I really enjoyed the way that she spoke about those topics, but the lyricism around it to keep the bars so clean and precise was incredible.
Yeah, this is the longest track on the album by a good mark. I think it's around 2 minutes longer than the second longest track, but there was a proper euphoric resolution after about... She finished the flow around 3 minutes in, and then it just kind of had this whole life of its own after that. And it felt like when that bit came in, it kind of felt like exiting a forest, because like you were saying, of like all the anger and everything that was in the first part, then it became really serene, but then immediately it all drops back out, so you're like floating in the air, then bang, straight back down.
It was like the instrumental just had a freestyle. It was like all the artists that she'd been working with on this album just had a moment and had a jamming session, and that produced the outro to this song, which led us into the next one in Lonely.
Some really funky vibes on this one out the gate. You know, it feels almost gospel-y, I want to say. It isn't, but it's got that kind of vibe about it. It's that sound, that kind of very large feeling track. And it was very introspective lyrics on this as well. And it gives you a nice insight into her current mental state. And I think it's always nice to hear these things, because it kind of grounds these artists, rather than them always being like, look at me, I've got all this money, blah blah blah. Hearing these things makes you realize that maybe it isn't as easy as people would perceive it to be.
Yeah, she's talking about struggling to write an album, kind of feeling unworthy, like she's not good enough, like she can't produce any more music. And I mean, she definitely can, having listened to this album. Yeah. But as you said, it's nice to see an artist explore these themes. And there was some really echoey vocals in the singing sections that were nice. And it was one of the first times really that Little Simz was singing. It wasn't a feature. The features have all done a fantastic jobs, but it was her singing, which... It's not as good as a lot of the features. That's not her speciality. But the way that they produced it made it a good moment still.
I do like hearing rappers sing, because as much as they can deliver those bars, 9 times out of 10, they have got a good singing voice as well. And Little Simz is no exception. She is fantastic.
There was a really nice string section as well, right towards the end of the track, which then led us into the final track of the album, which is Blue, featuring Sampha.
Which, again, another beautiful track, like one after the other. Great introspective lyrics again, and Sampha's vocals really added something to this track. Along with the continuous acoustic guitar that just kept repeating and repeating, Sampha's vocals to end it out just worked so nicely.
It felt peaceful, didn't it? But at the start of the track, it was Simz bars that were about the world, the classes, her upbringing for many people in Britain. Really powerful topics, discovered and talked about well again. Honestly, this closing section of the album, in terms of her ability to write introspective songs, has been unbelievable. But before I talk too much about the album as a whole, you tell me what you think, Tim.
So I've not really listened to Little Simz too much in the past, so I kind of went into this somewhat blind. The only song that I've really heard with Little Simz on, unfortunately, was the Coldplay track, which she does a really good job on, but it's from Coldplay's perhaps weakest album. So I kind of had this strange version of Little Simz in my head. After listening to this album, I am a convert, and I will say this now, I am a Little Simz fan.
See, I've listened to her albums before, but I've never really listened to them in this sense. I've had them on in the background while I've been working, doing X, Y, and Z, but this was a really special album to me. I think that the production and the instrumentals throughout it was some of the best I've heard in years. We've got jazz feel, we've got more old school British, almost streets feel, we've got energetic numbers, we've got really calm, drawn back instrumentals. But that wasn't even the best thing about it. It was Little Simz and her bars, her lyrical ability, the way that she can craft a song. That one we Wretch 3-2, where it's a phone call between siblings, the introspective ones that come after it, the one earlier in the album where, you know, she was pretending to be like a posh London girl throughout the whole track. Just some amazing moments, and it's actually put her into probably one of the top 5 UK rappers for me in terms of actual ability just from this album.
Yeah, the flows, the beats, the lyrics, the instrumentals, everything on this album felt like it'd been crafted to the next level. There's been a lot of thought put into every single aspect, even the track listing, everything about it, perfection in my opinion. And the production, really good. Just an all-round fantastic, just little package of a project. Little Simz package of a project. But let's move on to the all-important question. What would you rate this album out of 10?
I have no doubts in my mind. I'm coming in with a 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
I really enjoyed this. Thought it was super well produced, and I'll definitely be spinning it many more times.
Close for me, 8.5 out of 10. I thought this was a phenomenal album. I will definitely be listening to it again, and I will also be diving into the rest of Little Simz' discography, because I'm almost certain there'll be a lot of bangers in there.
Well, if you are a music fan, please do remember to hit like and subscribe. We're always talking about music. Hit the buttons.
Thank you very much for watching.